Good evening, welcome. Phase 4 of India's general elections is over and out. We have close to 70% of the MPs that are going to be part of the next parliament, their fates being sealed in the EVM machines. As we look at 3 more phases in this particular general elections, we've got phase 5 that takes place on the 20th, where the big cities that will be looking at Mumbai that goes to vote, phase 6, Delhi, Haryana, and final phase, phase 7 on the 1st of June. But before looking at all that, let's take a look what happened in phase 4 today. Interesting battle, 96 seats that went to polls today across 10 states and union territories. Some interesting battles that we've seen across the day when it comes to voting percentage, but still unconfirmed reports that we are getting close to 62 or 63% of voting that has been seen till date. So we're going to stick to that number, 62% voting turnout. That's what the unconfirmed reports are. We'll wait for the final numbers to trickle in. Let's quickly now try and understand how today's election or the election or voting day battle panned out. We've got our reporters from all across the country joining us. Let's quickly take a look at all the reporters who are joining us this evening. Mark Lynn joining us from Visakhapatnam. We've got Amit Mukherjee joining us from Ujjain. We've got Siddharth who will be joining us from Kannauj. All other reporters across the length and breadth, Maharashtra, Hyderabad, West Bengal, where our correspondents will be joining us to get us, help us get a sense of the latest buzz, especially from the places that went to polls today. So that's going to be our big focus. Let's quickly shift to all the correspondents on the ground zero, quickly get them on board and try and get a sense of how the voting day has been for all the parties there in the election fray. Well, we've got our first chunk of correspondence coming. We've got Rama joining us from Srinagar, which has seen record voting. We've got Amit Mukherjee joining us from Madhya Pradesh, where elections get over. Akshay Dongre joining us from the southern part of India, the state of Telangana, which went to polls today. Let me first come to you, Rama. Record numbers, 36% voting in Srinagar. Numbers that we've not seen for a very, very long time. Half the people watching television today wouldn't know the last time we've seen these kind of numbers coming from Srinagar on voting day.
We can call it historical because after 3 decades, this kind of voting turnout observed over here. In 1996, it was 40%, but if we see the previous in 2019 voter turnout, it was not even completely 15%. It was 14.43%, and in if you see in 2040 it was 25.8%, and 2009 it was 25.6%. So the way people came in large number, and it is completely incident free. So that's why we are calling it historical, and it is the higher percentage received from those pockets which were considered earlier terrorism affected, separatism affected, and very sensitive. So in that way, it is a very successful voting turnout, and it is giving various messages that people want peace here, people want development over here, and it is the end of boycott politics, it is the end of terror politics.
Okay, let's quickly shift to Madhya Pradesh. We've got Amit Mukherjee joining us. Amit, give us a sense of phase 4. How did the entire day pan out, and what are the numbers looking like as Madhya Pradesh, the election in Madhya Pradesh gets over today?
Well, Anil, the figures have been incredible. In fact, much on the expected lines. The only thing that was lacking before the third phase was, the low voter turnout. for which the Election Commission had put in adequate amount of effort. They had introduced incentive schemes and all to get voters out to the polling stations to cast to exercise the franchise. Now, if you look at the voting pattern till about 5 o'clock, 68% of voting has been recorded in the 8 parliamentary constituencies which went to polls today, and in fact, out of 8. 5 of the constituencies recorded more than 70% plus, voter turnout till 5 o'clock. So for these 5, constituencies, the number can only go up because the voting was on till 6 o'clock, and even and the voting might even go beyond 6 o'clock because all the voters who are within the premises till 6 o'clock, as per rule, they would be exercising their franchise. They are allowed to do that. So as of now, the number stands at 68 till 5 o'clock, and it might just go up. Now, if I look at the 8 constituencies, from the point of view of 2019, it had received about 76% of voter turnout, and with the state overall registering about 71%. So this time also the figures would be close to 71% or 70% plus, which is already, indicative of the 5 o'clock trend. The only downer has probably been Indore, where there was no Congress candidate, and there was some sort of a lackadaisical in the absence of any direct fight in this particular constituency where I am standing right now. In fact, earlier in the day I was in Ujjain, and in the evening I moved to Indore. Because till about 3:30 or 4 it was still lackadaisical, but again towards the evening the voter turnout was picking up. But the very interesting thing is that in the absence of a Congress candidate, those vote, about 70% vote might just get into the Nota segment. So that is something that we should look out for. But in any case, 70% plus, similar to what we had witnessed in 2019, and hopefully figures will be similar. That's what the BJP expects from here.
Okay, shifting from Madhya Pradesh to Telangana, where we've got Akshay Dongre joining us. Akshay, close to 62% is what we were hearing at around 5 o'clock. Do you have the updated numbers when it comes to voting in Telangana? Because all the 17 seats, one go. What was the excitement and the buzz there this is the last leg when it comes to the southern state in this general elections of 2024? Well, we're having some audio issues with our correspondent there, Akshay. We're going to try and patch that up. Before that, let's now, till that is done, let's quickly get our studio guest on board. Chakshu Roy joining us this evening to take these deliberations forward. He's been with us across the elections, and he continues to once again be a part of our deliberations today. Chakshu, welcome to this program. Happy to have you there. Also, we've got Akshay Raut, former Director General, Election Commission of India, joining us. Let me first come to you, Mr. Raut. How does one look at these numbers? 63% voting in phase 4. Happy, and the excitement, especially when it comes to certain states. Do you see the momentum picking up, especially when it comes to the elections?
I think it's quite fine. I think the turnout is at the same level almost as we had in the first, second and third phases. As we all know that it is likely to rise by another few percent by the time the final figures are available. And in my mind, these are good turnout numbers. If we look against 2014 and 2019, perhaps we are going to touch that or maybe slightly fall short. But in any case, if you look at India's history of electoral participation from 1951 onwards, I think this election, if it is touching overall 65%, that is why we are above 65% till the last 3 phases. And today also looks like we are definitely going to cross 65% by another count by tomorrow morning or a little after. Then it will look only one of those 3 elections in the independent India's history when we would have crossed overall 65%. If it goes like this till the 7th phase. So I think the turnout is very fine. Some states like Andhra Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh have done quite well. West Bengal expectedly has done a high turnout. So, okay, there is no dramatic increase in turnout, but it is not any dramatic decline either. And as you know, perhaps you are going to discuss this separately, the turnout in Kashmir the Union territory of Jammu and Kashmir is particularly very exciting, encouraging, and gives a lot of message to all types of stakeholders. It gives confidence, and it gives a sort of endorsement to a lot of structural changes which have been done in recent times.
Okay.
So it is a great sign of something big and something democratic and something positive happening in the valley.
Okay. Mr. Roy, how does one take a look at these numbers? Initial numbers that are trickling in, 63% and still counting. But how do you look at the numbers? Any trend that you see across the last three phases that is very much followed in phase 4? Or phase 4 is all about, mostly, predominantly rural India, and it presents a different picture?
Anil, I think numbers tell a whole lot of things, and numbers hide also a whole lot of things. So, it's very easy to say, that, turnout 60% or 62% or 63%. That's good. But if you think about what the underlying number is, I think 100% voters, had they cast their vote, it would have about 17 crore voters. So 62% would be roughly about 10.5 crore voters have actually gone ahead and cast their vote, exercised their franchise. An interesting thing about this particular phase also is the fact that the elections in Andhra Pradesh, in addition to the 92 parliamentary constituencies, I think 175 assembly constituencies also went to vote. And in Odisha, I think there were 28 assembly constituencies that went to vote. So this was the 70% mark, phase 4, 3 more phases to go. And hopefully, as my co-panelist was saying, wonderful news coming out of Jammu and Kashmir,
True.
where voters have come out in large numbers to go ahead and choose their public representative.
Okay, we've got Akshay back with us, joining us from Telangana. Akshay, what's been the buzz, especially when it comes to voting in the south? Because this is the last 2 states in the south, and elections in the southern part of India is over and out.
Well, absolutely, Anil. In fact, all of the 17 constituencies of Telangana, the youngest state of India, went for polls today. And if you look at the polling percentage, however, there is a slight drop from the 2019 general elections. However, the biggest cause of concern is the big cities like Hyderabad and other constituencies that are neighboring constituencies of Hyderabad, like Sikandrabad, Malkajgiri. In fact, if you look at the numbers of Hyderabad, it hasn't even registered a 40% voting. The number of polling percentage of Hyderabad remained at 39.17%, which is quite low. In fact, if you look at Sikandrabad, it was just at 42%, okay. And Malkajgiri is at 47%. So that was quite shocking turnout for cities like Hyderabad. However, if you look at big cities, urban apathy has been one of the biggest concern for the Election Commission of India. In fact, whenever the polling day has been near the weekends, people usually club it with the weekends and take a long off instead of considering coming out and polling to the polling booths. And it's not just considering it their right, but also their responsibility is what the Election Commission and other experts have also been stating. However, if you look at the rural areas, it has registered good voting percentage. In fact, in certain constituencies like Adilabad, it was 69%. At Bhongir, it was over 72%. So while the rural areas have registered good voting turnout, good voting percentage, but in the urban areas, it's exactly the opposite. The polling percentage has been quite low, and it has also been low in 2019 elections as well. So that remains one concern for the Election Commission as well. However, it remains to be seen that what exactly is going to be the outcome of this below national average polling that took place in the state of Telangana.
Okay, appreciate all 3 of you joining us this evening. Rama joining us from Srinagar, Amit Mukherjee joining us from Madhya Pradesh, and also Akshay joining us from Telangana. Mr. Raut, looking at the trend that we've seen in this particular 4 phases of voting, the voting starts off on a very slow note, and post 3 o'clock there is a pace that picks up pretty significantly. If you look at voting till 3 p.m., it's roughly around 52%. And after that, in the last 2 hours, there is a jump of almost 10% when it comes to voting. We're still not getting the final numbers, but close to 62.9 is what we're looking at. How do you see that? Is this a regular trend that you see across elections? Or
That's yeah. Yes, that's fairly regular, but it's more so in conditions of hot weather condition.
Okay.
I mean, when people prefer morning and perhaps late evening hours. That is why you must have seen that Election Commission has extended the polling hours in some places where there is more heat sensitivity. And as we all know, of course, the weather prediction for this phase was fairly normal, and it has not tortured the voters in any manner. But we had seen some of the impact in the first two phases at least. And that is why a lot of efforts have been made by the Election Commission to make sure that the polling stations and the voters are reasonably insulated from hot weather impact in difficult conditions. And that also includes making it comfortable to vote towards the end of the day when it is cooling down a bit. But that said, you would have seen that after the first two phases of experience, when there was a little dip in voting, I would not call it a drastic decline like news people would suggest, but there was a little dip. And after that, the Election Commission, for example, went on, engaged the massive telecom service providers to send messages and to give hourly notices, pre-day and polling day, every hourly notice and notification, persuasion, intimation to get the voters out. I'm seeing some results of that. And just now your reporter was talking about the urban apathy. And it has been a bad and sad story of Indian electoral participation because they remain typically 10% behind their village counterparts. And now, as the reporter from Telangana was saying, perhaps it persists a bit, though there is a lot of efforts by the Election Commission. For example, some weeks back, they called all the metro commissioners, including the Hyderabad commissioner, for example, to sit down in a huddle and find ways how the urban apathy can be broken, how the urban people can be pulled into polling stations. When we have something like none of the above also as a choice, that is, it's not really encouraging that our elite middle class voters who enjoy all the comforts should only talk politics and elections in the drawing room. They should come to the polling station, but that is still a problem. We have seen it in Bengaluru, we have seen in Ahmedabad before, we have seen in Mumbai, Delhi. I hope things are improving, but I just think that they will change much faster, and the electoral participation in urban areas so should improve drastically.
Okay, shifting, getting Chakshu back here. Looking at Maharashtra in particular, how do you see Maharashtra numbers? Not encouraging. Is there too much on the plate to choose? Now that you've got two Shiv Senas, two NCPs, you've got BJP, you've got Congress in the fray. Is that too much to choose that has left the voters confused? That they're trying, because the numbers don't look encouraging. We are into fourth phase and we just got Bombay left to vote, Bombay and Navi Mumbai. So numbers don't encouraging. Any surprising trend? Anything surprising that you see with Maharashtra and this cold shoulder to the elections, across the four phases?
I look at Maharashtra slightly differently, and the reason I say that is because you just mentioned the names of a number of political parties. Now, perhaps Maharashtra is one of those cases wherein the candidate was more important than the political party, because a number of these candidates had been associated with unified parties and then the parties went their different ways. So could that be a reason wherein usually political parties galvanize voters to come, and with parties which were slightly more disaggregated, did that impact the voting turnout? So that's one part of it. I think the other part of it also that we have to recognize is that while there is no heat wave, temperatures are still close to 41 to 42 degrees.
Okay.
There are some parts of the country where schools have been closed early because I think Calcutta schools have been closed early, Jharkhand schools have been closed early because the temperatures have gone a little high. And Mr. Raut was mentioning that voting time was increased. I think if I remember correctly, in 16 parliamentary constituencies, the voting time was from 7 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m. in the evening. So while we hope that urban voters who have the comfort of traveling short distances come out and vote in large numbers, and we hope to see that in the near future, But what is really commendable is that our rural voters are exercising their right and saying we want to have a say in who is going to represent us in Parliament.
Okay, let's once again get our correspondents on the ground back. We've got Marklin joining us from Andhra Pradesh, which has had simultaneous polls. We've got Siddharth joining us from Uttar Pradesh and Dibendu joining us from Bihar, from West Bengal. I stand corrected, from West Bengal, to take these deliberations. Let me come first to you, Dibendu. Once again, good voting numbers from West Bengal. Anything in particular? Are we seeing a tight contest in West Bengal? That's the reason you see more and more people participate in the dance of democracy.
Well, good evening, Anil. That's absolutely right. Perhaps it's a tight contest in West Bengal in almost all the seats that have gone to polls in this particular phase, which is the phase 4. There were 8 seats that went to polls in this particular phase. There were many heavyweight candidates that tested their fate amongst the electorates. Of course, it was a tightly fought contest mainly between the BJP and the Trinamool Congress, barring one seat, which is the Baharampur Lok Sabha constituency, where the direct fight was between the Congress and the Trinamool Congress here. And amongst the candidate was, of course, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, who is fighting to defeat the last bastion of the Congress, while the Trinamool Congress fielded Yusuf Pathan, a former cricketer, to take on Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary. But coming to your question, Anil, the number of voting percentage in West Bengal has been pretty high for almost all the phases, and for many years. If I even go back to 2014 or even before that, West Bengal has always recorded votings with an above of 80% mark. Right now what data we have from the Election Commission is, of course, at about 76.09% is the latest data that we have. It is likely to increase to about by 3 to 4% more.
Okay.
But we hope that even this time around the overall data will touch 80%. Back to you.
Okay, Mark, you are in Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh had simultaneous Lok Sabha as well as assembly elections. What's been the turnaround there in the first place, the turnout in the first place, and how did people enjoy voting for both the Lok Sabha as well as the assembly elections in one go on one day?
Well, Anil, the voting percentage at 5 p.m. was 68.02%, which is much lower than expected. And the place where I am, which is Visakhapatnam, the largest city, the voter percentage was only about 60%, well below expectations. In 2019, the voter turnout in this state was 80%. So, though it is only, these figures are only till 5 p.m. and voting did carry on for a whole hour after that,
okay,
the expectations are that it would not go up by another 10%, though perhaps it would. One never knows. I can only say that in the polling station that I visit, even at 5 p.m. when I was around there, I saw that there were queues that were pretty large in the polling booths. So it implied that there were people voting in the evening. We must understand that it has been hot, at least in Visakhapatnam, and people don't vote over a period. They tend to take a little rest in the afternoon and come out in large numbers in the evenings, and in the later evenings, in fact, the city seems to come alive. So perhaps that is one of the reasons why we didn't see enough voter turnout towards the afternoons at time.
Okay.
But we are hoping that, in fact, the chief electoral officer of the state had hoped that the voter percentage would go up to 83% in this election, but it is
okay,
only 68% at the time of 5 p.m. and one is not sure whether this is a setback or not.
Okay, we leave it there. Let's shift to Uttar Pradesh. We've got Siddharth joining us. Siddharth, looking at Uttar Pradesh on a whole, and many seats in particular which had the regional satraps or heavyweights fighting. How do you see this particular election play out, especially in those states, where the political heavyweights were contesting?
Well, definitely a very good evening to you, Anil. And there had been a high-octane battle out here as far as the Lok Sabha elections are concerned, the general elections 2024. Specifically, if I talk about the seat in Kannauj, then this is one of the seats, to watch out for as far as the, amongst all the 13 seats that went to polls this time around in phase 4th, because Akhilesh Yadav was contesting from here, and that too after 12 long years. This has been a den of Yadavs. This has been a den of a Samajwadi Party, and since 1998 till 2019, they held this place really, firmly. And on the other hand, BJP fielded Subrata Pathak from this particular this particular region. Like I say, the battle is real, and this time the BJP will try. They'll eye a resounding win. They will definitely try to win from this place. On the other hand, Akhilesh Yadav will try fight it out to get the lost fort. He has been MP from this seat since thrice continuously in 2000, 2004, and 2009. So battle here is very intense. If I talk about where I am right now, Anil, it's Kanpur. And if I specifically talk about, if I begin with the voting percentage, then there are disappointing numbers, but these are tentative numbers. Last time around, this particular constituency recorded a voter turnout of around 51%, and now it's around 52%, and which is likely to increase, but still the numbers are disappointing. And if I talk about Uttar Pradesh as a whole, then in 2019 the voter turnout was around 59.21%, and right now it's 56%. So if we even increase it by 2 or 3 percentage, if we make it 60, let's assume it's 60, then still the voter turnout is not what we usually expect.
Okay, we'll leave it there. At some places, the voter turnout more than expected, but in many of the regions that went to polls today, the numbers not cobbling to the expectations that were there on the ground. We appreciate all three of you, Dibendu, Siddharth and Mark, for joining us this evening. We are running out of time, so I'm going to quickly say thank you to both my guests who took time out to join us in this evening. Akshay Raut joining us online, Chakshu Roy with us in the studios as always. Thank you. Appreciate your joining. The Great Indian Election is your one-stop show on weekdays on all that matters in Indian elections. What could be the state, or rather states, that could form a part of our discussion on Tuesday night? Eastern state of Odisha and Jharkhand continue their journey in India's general election. Will the regional forces be able to hold their ground while national parties look to make inroads in the east? Watch why Jharkhand and Odisha matter on the Great Indian Election at 8:30 p.m. IST, only on DD India. Well, with that, it's a wrap of this edition of the Great Indian Election. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. Good night. Stay safe. Take care.